Well, here we are. It looks like we here in the United States this November will have the choice of either electing reality television's favorite fascist, or a person who not only exists within the uncanny valley, but is planning on moving there next year and calling it her home state. But are these really our only two choices? It seems to me that if you're a fiscal conservative who isn't pure evil, or a social liberal who wouldn't describe drone strikes as a pretty good time, then your choices may seem especially limited. You may even be tempted to vote third party.
Go ahead. Throw your vote away!
But would it even be worth it, or should you just go ahead and plan to flee the planet now so you can beat the rush before Inauguration Day? Well, today I'm going to try to help you make that decision. So, you want to vote third party. Howdy gang, normally I don't think a video like this would even be necessary, since a third-party candidate hasn't gotten more than 3% of the vote since Ross Perot in 1996. And in fact, a third-party candidate hasn't gotten a single electoral vote since 1968, when George Wallace took advantage of the potent yet quickly disappearing racist vote. Sound familiar? We haven't had a truly competitive three-way race since 1912, when Teddy Roosevelt said, "F it, being president is too fun to pass up," and started his own damn party to do it. And in fact, we have not had a single president that was neither a Republican or a Democrat since 1850, when Millard Fillmore was president of the Whig Party. And it's no wonder that Fillmore can't serve as a role model for future presidential candidates, because he's about as forgettable as the television series of the same name. I mean, come on, Fillmore, even Timo Supremo made it to 3 seasons.
Hey, you kids have some funky fresh moves.
The point is, third-party candidates have a really rough time winning presidential elections here in the United States. And there's a number of reasons for this. Now, you may have heard through your Facebook feeds that the system is rigged against us by the billionaire class, and that we actually live in an oligarchy where both parties are in the pockets of the special interests. But in reality, it's probably true. But the mechanism that they use to control us is the Electoral College. Now, you've probably had the Electoral College explained to you a million times before, but it bears repeating, so I'll make it quick. Quick, not short. Quick. In the United States, we do not elect presidents directly. Instead, each state votes for a set of electors that pledge support for a given candidate. This was to prevent the government being controlled by that pesky will of the people. The electors correspond to the number of congresspeople from each state, the state's representatives, which are allocated based on population, and its senators, which are allocated based on nothing. Each state has the same number of senators, 2, all because New Jersey was a whiny little wiener at the Constitutional Convention and didn't want states with more people in them to have more say in the United States government. As a result, low population states have disproportionately high representation, both in the Senate and consequently the Electoral College. So even though Iowa has 6 times the population of Wyoming, it only has twice as many electoral votes. I could go into a whole list of problems with the Electoral College, including that sometimes the person who gets the most electoral votes isn't the same as the person who got the most votes.
But don't you remember?
But for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to address why this system sucks for third parties. Each state distributes its electors based on a first-past-the-post, winner-take-all system. That means in a given state, whoever gets the most votes gets every elector. You could win by 1 vote or by 1 million votes. It gets the same result. This means that a third-party candidate really can't be competitive unless he or she is actually winning states. That's why Ross Perot didn't get a single electoral vote in 1992, even though he got 19% of the popular vote. His support was spread pretty evenly across the United States, so he couldn't get first place anywhere. Meanwhile, George Wallace, who only got 13.5% of the popular vote in 1968, managed to get 46 electoral votes, because his support was super lopsided. He got 3rd place in most states, but a small group of southern states were like, "Hey y'all, we're pretty racist, so we're gonna go ahead and throw down with this dude." The point is that a third-party candidate can't get any electoral votes at all unless they're a really strong regional candidate, or straight up polling evenly with the other 2 candidates nationwide. But even in a close 3-way race, it's almost certain that a third-party candidate could not win, because in order to win the presidency outright, you must get a majority of electoral votes, not a plurality. There are 538 votes in total, and you have to win at least 270 to be elected president. If you fall short, even if you have a majority of the popular vote and a clear Electoral College lead over the next highest contender, the election is thrown to the House of Representatives, where they choose between the top 3 candidates. And given that the House of Representatives is mostly comprised of Democrats or Republicans, they will probably choose a Democrat or Republican. So basically, not only does a third-party candidate need to get the most votes, but he or she needs to do so by a huge, or one might say huge, margin. And it's all thanks to the stupidity and inefficiency of the Electoral College.
It's a rigged system.
Phew. So, what does this mean for the 2016 election? There seems to be more demand for a third-party candidate than ever. Hillary Clinton has a net strong favorability rating of -20, meaning that 20% more Americans strongly disapprove of her than strongly approve of her. This would make her the most disliked presidential candidate in modern American history, if not for one man, who seems to want to outdo everyone and everything, Mr. Donald J. Trump, who has a net strong favorability rating of -41. So, most Americans hate at least one presidential candidate, and many Americans seem to hate both presidential candidates, so there should be an opening for a third party. But, because of the Electoral College, there's a risk of a spoiler effect. For example, the 2000 election between Al Gore and George W. Bush was decided by a single state, Florida, and that state was decided by a mere 537 votes. Meanwhile, third-party candidate Ralph Nader of the Green Party got 97,488 votes. If Nader voters had supported Gore, even if it was just 51% of them to 49%, then their support could have given Al Gore the presidency.
Boring!
It's not boring. I'm trying to save us all from certain death.
Since then, third-party support has dwindled as there is a notion that voting third-party constitutes throwing away your vote, or worse, tacitly supporting a thoroughly incompetent president.
Don't you remember?
But this election cycle is different. These two candidates are hated to such a degree that we have not witnessed in modern American politics. So what should you do? Should you vote third party because you want to protest the broken two-party system? Or should you vote for someone you hate in order to avoid voting for someone you're afraid might deport you, even though you're from Utica? It's ultimately up to each voter, but ironically, I think the Electoral College may well help us to make a decision here. If you live in one of the 40 states where it's either reliably Republican or reliably Democrat, then you can be pretty confident that your vote isn't going to count. That is to say, your vote won't ultimately change who wins the election. But if you vote third party, then your vote could count for a lot. Because in many states, ballot access laws are determined by how well a party did in the previous election. So if a candidate can get even 5% of the vote, he or she can guarantee his or her party access to the ballot in the following election. And this could make a huge impact on the perception of third parties in the United States. And if you live in a state where there's low turnout because it's a safe state anyway, it doesn't take that many votes to hit that 5%. I'm looking at you, Wyoming. Make yourself useful for once.
I don't want to waste money going to Wyoming.
Plus, we've all seen what happens this election cycle when the media gets a boner for an unconventional story. If there is significant support for third parties this November, even if it's in fake states like Wyoming, then the media will cover it. And cover it. And cover it some more. And that in and of itself will generate interest in third parties. Or write-in candidates. In most states, you can write in whoever you want and your vote will count. People have voted for actual candidates via the write-in process, or they'll vote for joke candidates as a protest like Mickey Mouse. Now personally, I'm partial to writing in John C. Now for voters in swing states like New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, Virginia, North Carolina, Florida, Iowa, Ohio, Colorado, and Nevada, your job is a little more difficult. Your vote might actually matter in that it might actually determine who becomes the president of the United States. And you may still be tempted to vote your conscience. You may reject the notion of selecting the lesser of two evils, but I just want you to consider, and I'm not telling you what to do, but I just want you to think about whether you truly believe that either outcome, Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton, would be equally bad. Do you really think that you do not align just a little bit more with one or the other? And do you honestly believe that one or the other would not make a better president, just based on the virtue of, say, knowing things? If you really don't think so, if you really think they're equally bad, then go ahead, vote third party, vote for a write-in candidate, whatever. But just be aware that even a subtle difference in the quality of president could have huge ramifications on this country and what will become our history. The presidency is a really powerful job. And your job as the voter, the person who's going to hire her or him, your job is even more so. If you have decided that you're going to vote third party, stay tuned for my breakdowns of the two most viable third party candidates, Gary Johnson and Jill Stein. And subscribe to be notified when these videos exist. It's good to be back, baby!